I think part of our charge in this particular session was just to wrap up what we thought we had heard so that the group would have a chance to debate whether or not these items should be what the working group, if a working group is to be formed, takes on. So I gathered notes as you spoke, put together a quick slide deck. The question posed to us is whether or not a working group could help us reach the promised land sooner and safely. Yep, exactly. Yeah. There's at least 5 nerd Easter eggs. You found one. All right, so very quickly, this is my disclaimer slide, conflicts of interest. I've been at this for about 13 years with really one goal, to help healthcare use its data to provide care more effectively, and that's taken me through government at the VA, academia, nonprofit, internationally, working in India, and now today inside of industry. The issues that we're discussing today have been the issues that I've been running full speed into over and over again for some time. So my answer, outright unequivocally, is absolutely a working group should be formed. We're at a very critical point in time right now where this is no longer science fiction. Nearly everyone today spoke about the real world issues of making this work. Nobody took the bait and started talking about AI as a sentient being or something where you drop in data and it magically cures cancer. And for me, that is a major turning point because that has been the theme for some time now. So how do we take advantage of this group and this momentum? The themes that I heard were, number one, education. And I think we have to start by helping the public understand what this is and isn't. Know that you're up against hundreds of millions of dollars in marketing budgets that are trying to persuade the public that this is a panacea. I will tell you that every time I give talks or write on the topic, it's related to very pragmatic issues and how we have to eliminate the hype surrounding these technologies. That does not stop the people that I give interviews with from running with headlines like this. This sells, and so this is what you're up against. This was me at the end of an hour-long keynote in which somebody in the audience asked, well, what jobs will it replace? And I said, well, if I had to bet, and this was the only headline they ran with.
It should replace Health IQ.
So a theme I heard over and over again that I think this working group could take on is that AI is cool, but it's people in process that improve care. And so can this group advance the cause of making that clear to folks? I think what makes this harder is that machine learning is a new way of learning. This is not just a new technology that's being introduced, but it's a new epistemology. It's moving from deductive and hypothesis driven to inductive and hypothesis generating, and that is no small leap for clinicians, or for anyone really that's been trained as to what is knowledge and how is it arrived at. Stephen Johnson does a really nice job in his book describing that innovation moves in steps and that there is a thing called the adjacent possible. We don't leap ahead to things like AI. We walk into it based on what we're used to. And so when I hear Edmund and others talk about having to show their results in terms that can be understood, that's very natural. That is the case in most new areas of innovation. We'll have to deal with that head on, which leads to the other area of tension, which is interpretability. I just couldn't bring myself to write explainability because it's not a real word yet. I hope that it becomes one over time. But it's this idea of what are we seeing, why, how do we know what to do with it? Third issue I heard discussed over and over again was data access and quality. The only thing I'll say about this is that, just like when we talk about AI is not one thing, right? That's like saying, should math be regulated? Well, I don't know. Is it math to... Is it math to tell me where to park the forklift? No, I probably don't want to regulate that. Is it guiding a robotic surgical arm? Geez, I think I do want that regulated. So you cannot talk about AI in terms of this amorphous thing, nor can you talk about data and its quality as though it's a brick or wood or steel. It's the one raw material that gets its value from the context of its use and reuse. One man's trash is another man's treasure. ICD-10 codes are perfectly suited to get me paid as a clinician. They are garbage for figuring out what's wrong with my patient. So I have to understand context is king here when it comes to data and data quality. The socio-technical I heard today, and I thought there were fantastic issues. This is often framed in terms of, will we replace radiologists? But I think there are bigger, deeper issues that need to be explored here. What does this do to the doctor-patient relationship? What are the unintended consequences? Evaluation. I've heard many levels of evaluation be discussed. It can only be discussed in context of a very specific problem. Also, there's a great difference, and Steve and I were talking about this in the hall, between evaluating the performance of an algorithm and whether or not lives were saved. There's probably 3 or 4, maybe 5 or 6 levels of evaluation that could be possible in any one real-world application. So how do we break down those classes of evaluation, talk about what metrics matter at what points in time, and in my opinion, although this is all my opinion, but in my opinion, not regulate the math, but regulate the processes and help people understand that there are best practices that can be put into place. I thought this is a very interesting point, and I've watched this unfold in oncology, where our understanding of cancer has moved from the organ system in which it was discovered to its DNA. That's huge. It means that data is making our understanding of the physiological world smaller. And I thought that Noel did a great job presenting asthma and our new opportunity to divide asthma into 4 or 5 parts. The more we learn about healthcare, the more we learn about biology, the smaller it becomes, and that introduces all sorts of incredible challenges, whether it's populating a clinical trial with the 1% of the 1% that has the colorectal cancer with that specific genetic marker, or whether it's creating guidelines to treat asthma when asthma is now 5 different things. This is a huge issue that this organization could take head on. Regulation. This was the third rail today, and I couldn't help but jumping in on it. There's another nerd Easter egg if anyone's paying attention. They're very nice. So the point of this inappropriate image is that I can see some people. It's Sharknado. It's a fantastic cinematographer. Anyway. So not all risk is the same is the point of this slide. And not all algorithms are the same. And I think we have to be, there should be a tension between keeping people safe and allowing innovation to occur. And this is a fantastic group to take on that issue. I heard this a little bit. I'm glad Matt brought it up later in the day, which was where to focus is not just a matter of what the math can do for us. There's no shortage of really interesting mathematical opportunities in healthcare. As a researcher, I focused on them for years. Unfortunately, I watched the number of problems that people would pay to solve decrease 100-fold when I went into industry. And why is that? The incentives of healthcare are oftentimes competing and usually not really aligned to actually get better at delivering healthcare. 95% of healthcare is fee-for-service. There's a reason why we hear folks from hospitals talk about using this to reduce sepsis, and Steve can talk about palliative care and suicide prevention. They're in a payer-provider system, and others are in a fee-for-service system. So understanding who is willing to pay for what is huge in understanding where we go from here. People will not do this because it's the right thing to do. Finally, we have seen other industries learn how to use these technologies, and I think one huge contrast, one opportunity, is to bring healthcare along. There's a huge difference between recommending books and keeping people healthy. I get that. But nobody in any one of these organizations paid a third party to install population book selling. They have integrated learning in nearly every aspect of everything they do, and that is how they've literally transformed their industries. They do not download an algorithm. They learn how to learn, and technology is a means to an end. Finally, I want to thank this group for being really a sign that now, and for the first time, we can use machine learning not just to solve the interesting problems, but to solve the meaningful problems. An interesting and challenging problem is differentiating a chihuahua from a blueberry muffin. A meaningful problem is keeping people healthy, and I think it's fantastic that this group is organized with that means in mind.